Sorry, are we about to start? Sorry, we're talking.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah, all praise to Allah, Lord of the heavens, Lord of the earth. We thank Allah for granting us the ability and the tawfiq to gather together and to hear about Him and about Ramadan, about the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We ask Allah to give us understanding of what we hear tonight, and we ask Allah to make this gathering a means of going to Jannah and being with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and seeing him. Assalamu alaikum everybody. Welcome again to another gathering of our group. Imam Abduladim is going to recite some Qur'an from us. Is it from Surah Al-Baqara?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون أياما معدودات فمن كان منكم مريضا أو على سفر فعدة من أيام أخر وعلى الذين يطيقونه فدية طعام مساكين فمن تطوع خيرا فهو خير له وأن تصوموا خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان فمن شهد منكم الشهر فليصمه ومن كان مريضا أو على سفر فعدة من أيام أخر يريد الله بكم اليسر ولا يريد بكم العسر ولتكملوا العدة ولتكبروا الله على ما هداكم ولعلكم تشكرون وإذا سألك عبادي عني فإني قريب أجيب دعوة الداع إذا دعان فليستجيبوا لي وليؤمنوا بي لعلهم يرشدون. The verses Shaykh Amin asked me to recite are all about the month of Ramadan. Yeah, so they're all about the month of Ramadan, and when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has really mentioned it in this part of the second chapter, and He has made it obligatory for all Muslims to fast. And He says that fasting is the best thing you can, if you fast, it'd be better for you if you knew. But He also highlights some kind of rulings in terms of people who might not be able to fast. Those who are maybe elderly or have illnesses that mean in the future they'll never fast. So Allah says that they should feed a poor person. And then Allah says, and people who are traveling or who are sick, they don't have to fast. They can make up that fast later on. And then Allah says, but if you do it, it'd be better for you. So Allah gives that kind of dispensation for people who cannot fast for some reason. And then Allah says that this month of Ramadan, this is the month where the Qur'an was revealed. It is the month of when kind of all guidance came. And Allah again says if you're traveling and if you cannot fast, then you just make up the days afterwards. And then Allah says that if they ask about me, i.e. the Prophet, if my slaves ask you regarding me, then say that I am near. I answer the prayer or the dua of those who call to me. So Allah says, let them turn themselves towards me awareness, they can find my answer, my guidance. That's it.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله العالمين اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد الفاتح لما أغلق الخاتم من سبق ناصر الحق بالحق والهادي صراط المستقيم. Alhamdulillah, it's nice to be here again. The idea is just to kind of give some. Ramadan's a huge topic, and there's a lot to talk about. Just to give some kind of some ideas and some fuel for us as we prepare for this month. I want to start where Abduladim started as well, when Allah says that, "Oh, you who believe, كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمْ الصِّيَامُ كَمَا كُتِبَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ." That fasting was prescribed for you, just as it was prescribed for people that came before you. It's very important that we realize that we're not as Muslims. We're not unique in the fact that we fast. The previous nations fasted, the previous prophets fasted. It's a prophetic tradition. It's a fundamental part of any religion. And for the benefits, Allah mentions here that perhaps you attain taqwa, you attain this awareness of God. That's one of the great benefits. But I just wanted to talk about how the fact that it is in the previous religions and it is in the previous books. And it's a tradition of righteousness, a tradition of piety, a tradition of control. If you look at the Bible in Isaiah, we have there's a beautiful passage which talks about fasting, and it said that is not this the kind of fasting I've chosen, to loose the chains of injustice and untie the cords of the yoke, to set the oppressed free and break every yoke. Is it not to share your food with the hungry and to provide the poor wanderer with shelter, when you see the naked to clothe them, and not to turn away from your own flesh and blood? So it's kind of really like a social statement. The fasting is about care and concern for your community and awareness of, and it's not just a mere act of worship. It's just a form that you kind of that you have, and you just about understanding the reality of it and understanding the spirit, not just the spiritual, but also the social aspect of it. So it's always been there in our religion. It's always been there in revelation, and it's something we need. We have to realize that we actually need this yearly checkup and this yearly refresher, if you like. In work you have like you have every year you have to do your CPD or whatever, your continued professional development. You have to come back and check yourself, and this is like Ramadan. Every year we come back to this, check ourselves. Where are we at? How's our spiritual progress? How's our self-control? How's our etiquette? How's our patience? All these things. How much are we in control of our desires? So it's always been needed, and also Allah says that it's that it may seem difficult, it may seem hard, but the fact that everyone's done it, everyone's doing it, everyone's done it is almost comfort to us. That we're not on our own. Even though in this society it may seem completely weird that how are these people fasting all day long, but it is a sunnah, it is a practice of the previous prophets and the previous nations, and we have it there. Just to mention some of the beautiful kind of merits of Ramadan. One of the most famous hadith is that the Prophet said that every action is multiplied. Every action you do is multiplied from 10 times up to 700 times. Whatever good you do will be multiplied, and that's Allah's and God's grace and His kindness that He multiplies our deed. The one small amount that we do, Allah multiplies it and increases it. But He said fasting is something special. And this is Allah speaking. This is actually what the Hadith Qudsi, Allah Himself is speaking. He says that Allah says that فَإِنَّهُ لِي وَأَنَا أَجْزِي بِهِ, but fasting is mine. This is Allah speaking, saying fasting is my property and I will take care of the reward. Okay, obviously Allah takes care of the reward of everything in reality, but He's saying fasting is something very special to me. It's my property, if you like. And one of the reasons that is because it's a secret between you and Allah. Okay, a prayer has an outward form. When you pray, someone can see whether you're praying or not. But fasting is just withholding, restraining yourself. Okay, so you can't fool. You can fool anyone. You can say you're fasting or not, but only Allah knows whether you're fasting or not in reality. And in fact, the only thing that, as we're going to come to, the only thing which differentiates the fast from anything is your intention. From just not eating. You might just not be eating that day. You might be but there's an intention which is between you and God. So this is one of the reasons. There's many other things they mention. That also there's no showing off. Showing off is much harder to creep into just fasting. In action, giving charity, you can show off because people can see that. People can see that. But fasting, no one can see that. So it's Again, there's not that ostentation which creeps in as it may do in other actions. It can still do, but it's closer to being to sincerity. And also, you can't draw close to any human or any idol with not eating. Okay, you can give a gift to an idol. You can give charity to someone or do something. Anything of these actions you can do. There's some kind of form of impressing or seeking the pleasure of that thing, but you can't draw close to an idol with not eating, or anyone else for that matter. Another reason is that you're actually, by fasting, you're overpowering the devil. Shaitan is his power overcomes through our desires, through our physical desires. Okay, so when you constrain them and restrict them, you're actually closing the door to the devil, and the devil is our worst enemy, the enemy of God. Another meaning is that on the Day of Judgment, that some people will have their good deeds taken away from them. If they wronged others, they may have their good deeds taken away from them. But they said that fasting will remain, because fasting belongs to Allah. Allah will cause that fasting Allah will make that fasting as a mean for you to enter paradise. And every other action has a reward, as the hadith says. But this is just, we don't know the reward. Allah has concealed that. And Allah says in the Qur'an, إِنَّمَا يُوَفَّى الصَّابِرُونَ أَجْرُهُمْ بِغَيْرِ حِسَابٍ. Allah will give the patient ones, the people of sabr, a reward without any account. And then the scholars say the sabirun are the fasting. I mean, that's one of the meanings, is the people that are fasting. So if you're having that patience, the patient one is given a reward without any limit. And one of the greatest types of patience is fasting. And in the same hadith, the Prophet goes on to say that this person leaves his food and his desires for my sake. This is a very personal thing between you and God. You made that decision to do it. So you're leaving things which are dear to you, which are actually fundamental to yourself. You're leaving them for the sake of God. And he says the fasting person has two joys, has two sources of joy. One, when he or she breaks their fast, and the second, when they meet their Lord. Okay, so that we have short-term pleasure and short-term goals and short-term rewards and short-term goodness, but the believer's always thinking what's happening, what's the end result of that thing. When you meet your Lord, there'll be joy when you meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that's a huge thing. And he says also that the breath, the breath of the person fasting, often it can be unpleasant because the stomach starts releasing things, and but in Allah's sight it's sweeter than the scent of musk. So again, we have physical things which we experience, but their spiritual reality might be something different. Someone may be ugly in this life, but in reality they're beautiful. Physically unpleasant to look at, but in reality they have their beauty. They have great beauty, spiritual beauty. So something which is unpleasant physically, it has a spiritual reality which is something beautiful and sweet in Allah's sight. And then he finally says, "As-sawmu junnah," that fasting is a shield. Okay. Well, he mentioned all these things in one hadith, that the fasting is a shield. It shields you from disobeying God. It shields you from the fire. It shields you from the displeasure of God. It shields you from the evil of your own self, from being a prisoner to your own desires. So there's many hadith that we can mention, but just to mention another couple. What the Prophet says that the one who fasts Ramadan, imanan wa ihtisaban, seeking in good faith and in seeking the reward of Allah, their previous sins will be forgiven. So the one who fasts, all they have to do is to fast Ramadan, believing in God and seeking the reward of God, their sins will be forgiven. So they'll come out of Ramadan with a clean slate. And also he said, the one who stands, man qama Ramadan. So man sama, the one who fasts, and one who stands in Ramadan. What does standing mean? It means praying in the night. Qiyam al-layl. The one who fasts will have their sins forgiven. The one who prays in the night will have their sins forgiven. Okay, so this is what's obligatory upon us is the fast, but what's recommended beyond that is to increase in our prayers at night. And this is one manifestation of that. The most obvious is Tarawih, the Tarawih Prayer, which is prayed in the mosque. But if that's too difficult, if that's too much, then at least have a portion of Qiyam of your own, on your own, or in your own house, or whatever it may be. And especially if you're new to Islam. And I remember the first year I became Muslim, the Tarawih was, I don't even went to Tarawih, but it was like, it's too much. It's a huge thing to actually stand that length of time, not knowing what's being said, and just but that doesn't mean you don't have your own little time you spend in Qiyam. And we'll come back to that, inshallah.
I ask a question?
Yeah.
Are you okay to ask a question?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So see here you said your sins are forgiven.
Mm-hmm.
So is it still that you just believe that, but you still be judged on, like, on Judgment Day for that? So do they get forgiven straight away, or is it just you just think God's mercy is more than punishment?
There's many actions that you can do which wipe out your sins and kind of wipe the slate clean, and that's Ramadan is one of those things. But they say
you
also
just start fresh, like they say you go to do the pilgrimage.
like Hajj, exactly. Yeah, you come back with it. But they also
just
say
just like that.
that's what's the promise, and that's part of the belief, is that we believe that is a promise, but also they mentioned that it doesn't apply to rights that other people. So if you've wronged someone else, or you've got things to pay back to people, it doesn't wipe those things out. You're still accountable for those things. It's between you and God. The wrongs that you've done between your relationship with God, those are wiped out. But things which you still have to correct in your relationship with other people, those remain. Okay.
Because you haven't fixed them.
You haven't fixed them, yeah. So it's not enough to say, I fast Ramadan and, well, actually you wronged this person and you owe this person, and it's not.
So, like, for example, if you didn't do the fast last year and you're doing more of them this year,
Mm-hmm.
so that'll be forgiven last year, and it's this clean slate like that.
Well, if the fasting is obligatory. So if you haven't fasted if it's been obligatory upon you and you haven't fasted, then you need to make that up as best you can. That becomes like your prayer, and your fasting is something that you have to. That's a duty between you and God that you have to fulfill as best you can. Whenever you have extra time, you try and make up those things.
Do you just count them up over the years?
Yes, yeah, that's something you need to think about. But take it slowly, take it easy.
But then see, like, what are you like? So if people tell me to be careful with sources of information, so I get so lost with everything.
Yeah.
One person tells you one thing, another person tells you another thing, and it just you just get lost with it. So because somebody said to me, it's not a clean slate in Ramadan. It's you still get judged on Judgment Day for all that. You just got to believe and have hope, but you can't say that you're just forgiven and it's a clean slate.
We believe that's part of the hadith, is that if you believe do it in belief and hoping that your sins will be forgiven. That doesn't mean that you're now kind of perfect, and you can't. That's an encouragement to carry on, but you hope that the sins that you've committed in the past are taken care of. So you would
hope then, so you can't say. You would still have that hope in God that I'm doing this good deed, as in I'm fasting.
Definitely.
So we do this for God, did you say?
Yes.
So we're doing this for God. So in the hope that anything that, obviously because we're trying to do good deeds, aren't we? That's what the scales are about, right? So any good that we do will hopefully give us an entrance to the gate of Jannah. Is that what it is? But you can't say a definite, right?
We can't say definite. We can't say for definite that.
Because when you say it's a clean slate and you're forgiven, and that's why the question was there with me.
That's what we hope. We can't tell. Was our fast accepted? How do we? These are all.
Wait for Judgment Day.
We don't know. We don't know the results at the end of the day.
And probably the day after we stop the day we stop fasting, first after Ramadan, we probably make more mistakes again. Do you understand? We start to sin again.
So the Ramadan is like a reflection on what you've done in the past year and what you've implemented in 11 months to continue that and do better.
That's one of many things that Ramadan is. Yeah.
And remember, as Amin said, that if we've sinned with regards to other people, we need to try and put that right.
But that makes sense, because you can't just think that God's mercy is.
That's the thing. God's mercy, when it relates to Him, is all encompassing. When it relates to Allah, doesn't allow people to. When it comes to other people's rights, He can't overlook that, because that's someone else's right. But that's a lot of this we don't know until the Day of Judgment, basically.
Okay.
Yeah. So, no, it's good. It's good to. It is. Yeah, these are hadith.
I'm one of these people that's
like fine. No,
the why person.
That's good. It's good. The why is important, because a lot of people just.
Questions, and if I don't understand something, and I hope you guys don't mind.
No. It increases our understanding, because often we hear these hadith and we've heard them before, but what do they actually mean? You're right. And so the hadith says that the one who fasts Ramadan, their sins will be forgiven. The one who prays in Ramadan, their sins will be forgiven. And also the one who stands on Laylatul Qadr, again, their sins will be forgiven. So these three things that I mentioned, all with the same reward. So the one who fasts the whole Ramadan, completes that. The one who prays to their ability every night in Ramadan, and the one who also stands in prayer on Laylatul Qadr, on that one night.
To do with striving and effort.
Basically, it's doing your best and hope and leaving the results to God, but hoping sincerely that you know.
And the more good that you do, then your heart becomes settled, you become spiritually peaceful, and then you follow that feeling. Okay.
Do you want to just? Are you going to talk a bit more about Laylatul Qadr?
We can come back to that. Yeah, we can come back.
Anyone who's not familiar.
Yeah. There'll be stuff that we can come back to as well.
Okay. Yeah, that's me done.
We have time at the end.
No, it's cool. It's all good. No. And just one little. I find one more hadith that Salman al-Farisi narrates that the Prophet ﷺ, he said he gathered us together and he spoke to us on the last day of Sha'ban. So it's good. This is what we're doing in a sense. Is this in a sense that we remind ourselves of the benefits, and the Prophet did this with his companions. He said, tomorrow is Ramadan. Look what's awaiting you. Think of all the good things, and making them yearn and long and hope to do good. So he said, this is what the Prophet did. He said to them, this month is upon you. This great month, a blessed month is upon you. In it there's a night which is better than 1,000 nights. Okay, just that one night is better than 1,000 months. The fasting has been made compulsory upon you, and the Qiyam al-Layl has been made a choice, something you can choose to do. Okay, it's extra. But the one who does a voluntary work of goodness will be like the one in Ramadan will have the reward of the one who does an obligatory work outside of Ramadan. So even the extra, this is again like an encouragement to do more. The supererogatory, the extra works you do in Ramadan, they'll be as if they were obligatory works outside of Ramadan. 70 times increased or more. And the one who does what's obligatory in Ramadan, it'll be increased 70 times over. So when you kind of work out, we don't know the reality of the rewards, but just think of it as an encouragement that every compulsory prayer you do, that will be 70 times increased. 70 times increased. And the nafil will be also increased 70 times. And then he said sallallahu alaihi wasallam that he said huwa shahr al-sabr, it's a month of patience. And so one of the great qualities you can have and gain in Ramadan is patience and perseverance. وَالصَّبْرُ ثَوَابُهُ الْجَنَّةِ, and the reward of patience is paradise. It's also shahr al-muwasa, it's a shahr of the month of taking care of people's needs, reaching out to people. So in whatever that you can, in helping them, and charity and fulfilling people's needs, and honouring the ties of kinship, honouring your parents, and so on. This is all part of Ramadan. It's also the month in which your rizq, which your provision is increased. And then he said to Allah, and the one who breaks another person's fast will be forgiveness for their sins, and they'll be freed from the fire, and they'll have the reward similar to the reward of the person fasting. Okay, I'm sure you're aware of that when you break someone else's fast, you have the reward of their fasting without them using the reward of their fasting, but you have a reward. So there's a huge reward in just feeding people, even if it's just. And they said to Prophet, what if you don't have any food? Because a lot of the companions were poor and they were living in hard times. They said, just Prophet, even if it's just a gulp of milk or a gulp of water or a date, one date. So even just giving that person that date as they break their fast, you're rewarded for their fast. Okay, without them obviously losing the reward for their fast. And he said also that the beginning of the month is mercy, and the middle of it is forgiveness, and the end of it is freedom from the fire, or release from the fire. So that's just a few things that he mentioned of many things, many rewards and many benefits. And there's more we could talk about, but I wanted to just mention a few just of the rulings relating to fasting. This is entering into fiqh, which is a very big and complicated subject, and we don't want to that's a whole separate thing, but just to mention some of very briefly about what fasting is and what are the rulings of fasting. So first of all, what are the conditions for a valid fast? What are the conditions for a valid fast? Very simply, it's just the intention, as we said. So intending to fast is you must make the intention to fast, to distinguish that action from just not eating that day, or from so you actually have the intention to fast. And the scholars differ on the details. But generally it's better to make the intention in the night before, that tomorrow I'm going to fast. Some scholars say you actually prefer, it's better to say it. Some say it's just enough and it's enough in the heart. Everyone's agreed that it's enough to just in the heart that tomorrow I'm going to fast. Some say it's preferable to say it. But mainly it's just having that determination. And just they say even just the intention, that the fact that you're having suhoor, that you're having the meal before Fajr is an intention in itself. The fact that you're eating before Fajr, that in itself is an intention, according to some of the scholars. The second thing is to avoid everything that would break the fast. Okay, it's very simple. So always just intending and avoiding everything which would break the fast. Okay. And the third they mentioned is for in the case of a woman to be on her period, to be on menstruation, to be menstruating, or to be in post-natal bleeding. So that in that case that person can't fast. And we'll come back to that, inshallah. So what are the things that actually break the fast? Very simply, it's anything which enters the body, a substance which enters the body cavity, meaning the throat, the stomach, and the intestines, and remains there, breaks the fast. So it doesn't have to be food, but anything that enters into the throat and then by the stomach and intestines, that breaks the fast. Okay, and there's a lot of detail and a lot of issues related to that, but we'll just keep it very simple. And the second thing is sexual relations. So what we're required to do is to restrain ourselves from eating and drinking and having sexual relations, which is from dawn to dusk. And then engaging in those things is what breaks the fast. However, if you ate out of forgetfulness, you forgot, for example, you woke up and you forgot your fasting, you had a glass of water, that doesn't actually break the fast as soon as you remember, you stop doing it, or you realize, okay, so that's a mercy. The Prophet says that whoever forgets that he is fasting and eats or drinks, then he still completes his fast. It is only Allah who fed him and gave him to drink. Okay, so we're not taking into account, as a general principle, we're not taking into account for the things we forget. Okay. If you forget something, then it's actually a mercy that God actually allowed you to drink and eat, and then doesn't take you into account for it, because you weren't conscious. You're not taken into account for that. So, without going into too much detail, that's kind of generally what breaks the fast and what invalidates the fast. There's things like, you get a lot of questions about the details, and this is important to learn this, to take the time to learn it. We're not going to go into too much detail, but things like, people ask, such as, am I allowed to swallow? I've got saliva in my mouth. Am I allowed to swallow it? I've got phlegm. Does that break the fast? And generally, the scholars say no. Can I brush my teeth? Can I do these kind of things? So, as long as something doesn't, the main thing is, the principle is as long as something doesn't actually, you don't swallow anything, okay, from outside. That's basically what breaks the fast. Okay, so you try and avoid. And if in doubt, as we heard last time, if you're in doubt, then leave it. If you're worried about something, or leave that which doesn't give you doubt for that which doesn't give you doubt. So you're worried that something's going to break your fast, but it shouldn't become obsessed about, I'll do this. But the principle is just avoiding consuming these things. Certain things are disliked when you're fasting, such as tasting and chewing things, and mainly because of the danger of chewing of things entering into swallowing them, basically. They mentioned a lot of things. We can, if people have questions, we can go into them, but I don't want to kind of spend too long on that. And we heard from the verses that people who are excused from fasting. So someone who's mentioned before, a woman who's menstruating is not, their fast is not actually valid. They can't fast, and they have to make those days up. Okay, so if your period comes during Ramadan, then those 7 days or 8 days or 9 days or whatever it is, those you keep a note of those and then make them after Ramadan. And if the period came during the middle of the day, then that day is no longer counted. You actually break fast on that day, and you have to make that day up. So even if it came right just before Maghrib, you fast the whole day and it came just before Maghrib, that day would not count, unfortunately. So you have to make it up. Sick people, women who are pregnant and breastfeeding, they're obliged to fast, but if it becomes too much hardship, they fear that would increase their sickness or slow the recovery if they're sick, or if they fear for the baby, fear for the health of the baby, fear for the mother fears for her own health, then they can break their fast, but then make it up. So it's about keeping an account of how many days you've missed. If you're traveling again, a traveler is excused from fasting if they initiate their journey before Fajr. So if you set out before Fajr, you can break your fast on that journey. However, it's better to fast if you're able to. If the fast in traveling in our time has become a lot easier. Obviously, it wasn't like crossing the desert on a camel in the dust, and that was a serious journey, and you just wouldn't fast in your right mind on that kind of journey. In the kind of travel, the journeys that we have, you can quite easily fast. But if you feel that it's going to be hard and it's going to be difficult, and you're not, then you can break the fast, but again, make it up and keep a count of the days you fasted. So in terms of what's recommended, it's recommended to break the fast, sooner after Maghrib, straight after Maghrib to break the fast. That seems obvious. Who would not do that? But there can be a kind of almost like a false piety of like delaying and saying I want to extend it a bit longer. And the way the Prophet ﷺ was to break it as soon as Maghrib, as soon as sure as Maghrib, as soon as it's sure that the sun had set and Maghrib would enter. Okay, and that's the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Also to delay the suhoor, to delay the time of suhoor, just until shortly before Fajr, okay, to give you strength to fast. That was the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And he said there was barakah in this. Another thing that's recommended in Ramadan is i'tikaf, is to make spiritual retreats. Okay, and that might, again, that's may be difficult for a lot of us, but the Prophet himself would actually retreat in the last 10 days of Ramadan. Sometimes more than that. He would actually spend the time in the mosque. For us, how does that apply to us? If we're able to do something like that, it's good. If not, then understanding the principle that we should have that. The last 10 days of Ramadan have a significance and have an extra reward and have a special time that we try and spend in extra worship if possible. Okay, whether that be at home, whether it be in the mosque, the main thing is that you more focus in this, and you actually save yourself a bit more for those last 10 days, and you save yourself and you try and seek Laylatul Qadr. That's another thing that the Prophet says to us, and seek Laylatul Qadr. In other words, and he said in general that Allah has gifts that He sends down. He said that Allah has what He called breezes. But the word you probably used was breezes, nafahat. The breezes come and blow at certain times, and they're more intense at certain times than others. And in Ramadan, there's constant breezes coming. But he said, expose yourself. If you're inside, you can't feel the breeze. So go out, step outside, and feel the breeze. In other words, if you want to receive these gifts, then you have to do something to get them. So standing in prayer, or making dua, being fasting, all these things are actually means of exposing yourself to receive things from God. And Laylatul Qadr is one of these intense times of intense blessings, intense mercy, intense greatness. Because the meaning of Qadr is greatness, is status, is magnificence. There's a magnificent night that we don't necessarily, may not be aware of that it is that night. We not be aware of the things that are taking place on that night, the mercy that's descending, the angelic presence, the forgiveness or the reward, anything. But we just, as servants, we do our best to try and receive something of that, and we hope that it's been received. So i'tikaf is one of the things the Prophet did to increase our, if you like, exposure to those blessings at that time. And it has just cutting yourself off. If you can do it even in our own homes or whatever, we just have some time where we're cut off, we're focused, we're spending more time with God and less time with our media and our things that are around us and everything which distracts us. And in general, spending time in the mosque is great. It is a time to do that in Ramadan for those who are able to, and to try and, in general, just trying to kind of attain some of the qualities that to kind of assess ourselves in terms of our attributes. Where are we at in our spirituality? In the time how do we spend our time? What are the kind of qualities that we're looking to seek? And sabr has been mentioned, patience, being in control. And when they say patience, there's 3 types. The first is being patiently obeying the commands of God. It takes sabr to wake up in the morning, to wake up early and to pray, to make wudu and to pray. It takes sabr to fast the whole long day when you're working, when you're busy, whatever it is. It takes sabr to do these things. Another type of sabr is patience in avoiding which is displeasing to God, avoiding disobedience. That's a different type and a harder type of sabr. Okay, so you have your temptations come, your desires come. You want to do this and do that, and enjoy this, enjoy that. Your sabr is making you control yourself, control your desires. And the third type is patience in what Allah decrees. Whether that be Allah decrees that some hardship befalls you, or Allah decrees that you obey Him and to do certain things. So they say Ramadan, all these types of sabr are contained in Ramadan. Patience in the face of adversity and in the decree of God. Patience in avoiding disobedience, and patience in obedience itself. So it's teaching us this great quality. which Allah mentions about over 70 times in the Qur'an, to show you how important it is. You need to have you need to have patience. Allah saying all different times and states you need to have this patience. Generosity as well. We heard that the Prophet ﷺ was the most generous of people, but he became more generous in Ramadan. Al-Jud. He was the most generous of people outside Ramadan, but he became more generous in Ramadan. He saved himself up, if you like, for that time. And that doesn't just mean in terms of giving charity, in all manifestations of that. In your relationships with the creation, with the Creator. In fact, you're giving from what you have, and you give more in Ramadan. You give more in Ramadan. And he said he's described as being more generous. He was like a wind which brought rain in the desert. Think about this image of parched land and the rain coming, a wind coming bringing rain. That's how the Prophet ﷺ was in Ramadan. He was the most generous of people outside Ramadan, but even more in Ramadan. He was giving, he was teaching, the Qur'an was being revealed, he was actually rehearsing it and learning it, if you like, with Jibreel, and teaching it and conveying it to people. So there's many different manifestations of that Jud, of that generosity. And we heard in the verses that were recited very beautifully that شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن. It's the month in which the Qur'an was revealed. So it should be a month in which we try and reconnect or connect to the Qur'an, reciting it more, reading it more, understanding it more, spending more time with it. We think of the time we spend, looking at our screens, and if that could just be a small amount of time could be spent with the Qur'an. If we don't know how to read it, to learn how to read it, put that effort in, and to learn what the meanings, and read a translation of the Qur'an, read a commentary of the Qur'an. So you're increasing in that. And then he says that Qur'an hudan lin-nasi wa bayyinatin min al-huda wal-furqan. He mentioned three things about the Qur'an. That is hudan lin-nas, it's guidance. It's like a roadmap for people. Shows people the way. It's a general guidance. Everything you find in the Qur'an is like a general guiding you to the path. And then he said, وَبَيِّنَاتٍ مِنَ الْهُدَى. But also there's general guidance, but there's also specifics. The specific principles, specific rulings, specific guidance. بَيِّنَاتٍ مِنَ الْهُدَى. The specific things that we learn. Okay, so we understand the general principles, but we're trying to get deeper and understand what's God trying to say to us here. What's the principles here? What's the message, and how do we understand that, and what's being said? Okay, so we understand the specific principle. What are the bayinat? What's being clarified here? How can we go a bit deeper and understand what's meant? And a lot of that comes through looking at the life of the Prophet ﷺ. How did he? Because when Sayyidah Aisha was asked, describe the Quran, describe the character of the Prophet, she said, "Kana khuluqul Quran." His character was the Quran. So if you want to read the Quran, read it in the book of Muhammad ﷺ. If you want to read the Quran and understand how the Quran was embodied in the Prophet ﷺ. How these verses, how they revealed, how he implemented them and how he acted upon them, how he lived by them sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is something we can. And then finally, he said, "Well, Furqan." The Furqan is what distinguishes between right and wrong. Okay, between haqq and batil, between falsehood and truth, and also between the better of two choices, the worst of two evils. It becomes more subtle. So if you have a choice, what's the better thing to do in this situation, or what's the lesser of two evils? It gives you distinguishing. The Quran gives you that distinguishing, that furqan, that criteria to do that. In terms of fasting, again, that Imam Al-Ghazali, one of the great Imams and great teachers of this religion, he said that he mentioned 3 levels of fasting. He said there's a fasting of every day, everyone does, which is just avoiding food and drink and sexual relations. Which everyone does. Okay, that's the lowest level of fasting, and everyone has to do that. But then he says there's a higher level of fasting, which is to have that self-control, whereby you control your gaze. Okay, you control what you look at, you control what you say, you control your tongue. And in fact, many of the hadiths, they talk about controlling the tongue. The hadith says that if someone insults you or attacks you, then say inni sa'im, say I'm fasting. Okay, control yourself. Your lowest, your soul, your ego is saying telling answer back, say something, respond, fight back. But Allah is saying to say to you that I'm fasting. I'm in a different zone. I'm not going to lower myself to your level. Okay, I'm with God. I'm on a different planet from you. Okay, I'm not going to get into this I'm not going to get into this discussion or this debate or this argument. So controlling the tongue, controlling the gaze, controlling the hearing, what you listen to. Okay, this is a higher level of fasting. What do you want to be hearing in Ramadan? What do you not want to be hearing in Ramadan? Because remember, everything that you hear has an effect. Everything you see has an effect. The heart, the eyes and the ears are like doors onto the heart. So what you hear, what you see, a film you might have seen, or even like a little clip you might have seen, has a huge. It might enter your heart, and just once it's there, it's very hard to get rid of it. Okay, it sticks in your mind, it comes back to you. Something you heard again, and we're told to lower our gaze from what we're not, but it's very hard. You can't lower your hearing. You know, hearing picks up things from hearing from there. So you try your best to control these things, to control your stomach. Okay, that you don't. The temptation is to gorge yourself, to stuff yourself. But what's the point in fasting and controlling yourself, and then just losing all that in a fit of stuffing yourself, etc. So control the stomach and make sure what you eat is also tayyib. We talked about this before, that not just halal but tayyib as well, the best. Choose the best thing to eat. Break your fast on the best thing. Prophet ﷺ taught us to break the fast on dates and water, because that's the best thing you can eat in that time. But then also when the food that you eat again should be the best. So controlling your stomach, and then he said finally that you should be in a state of between hope and fear when you break your fasts. Just as we mentioned before, there's a hope that you're going to be forgiven, but a fear also that you haven't been accepted. So you don't think, it's guaranteed I've done this. You say alhamdulillah, the farah, the joy you have breaking the fast is there, but also the hope and the fear. And this goes throughout all our relationship with God. Is that there's a balance of khawf and raja, hope and fear. So when you break your fast, you have that happiness and joy, but there's also, there's no complacency. Complacency doesn't creep in. So that's the second level. He said the highest level of fasting, which is the fasting of the elite, or the elite of the elite. He says that their fasting is from everything other than God. Their thoughts are focused on God to the extent that so in reality, whether it's Ramadan or not, they're fasting all the time. So their minds are focused on God. They don't think about the physical side of things. They don't think about what they're going to break the fast on. They're focused on their relationship. So that's obviously a very high level. But it's just to give us a taste of what these people were talking about. The first level, the minimum is just what everyone has to do, which is to avoid eating and drinking. Higher than that is to control yourself, control your desires, control your sight, control your hearing, control your tongue. Most importantly. And then the highest level is just to be completely focused on God and on that fast. If you find yourself distracted, you bring yourself back and focus. And finally, someone said that Ramadan is a school, a madrasa. Ramadan is a school. So it's like we're going back to school. We're going back to learn about ourselves, learn about our weaknesses, our strengths, learn about the Qur'an, learn about Allah. Its teacher is the Prophet ﷺ. So it's a school. The head teacher is the Prophet ﷺ. He's the one that's teaching us in reality. He's the one that laid out these things. All these things we talked about now, they're things that he explains, ﷺ. And the curriculum is the Qur'an. The curriculum is the Qur'an. So we come back to the Qur'an to learn how to live our lives, to learn how to be in society, to live, to how we relate to our Lord, to the creation, to everything. All of that is the curriculum that we're learning in the Qur'an, in Ramadan, which is the Qur'an, inshallah. So that's what I wanted to say, inshallah. If anyone has any, if I missed something, which there's a lot of things I missed, but if anyone wants to raise anything or ask that specifics, or please feel free to do so, inshallah.
Question. That's quite beautiful, all that actually. It feels quite settling in the heart.
Mm-hmm.
But how do we follow what you followed?
Mm-hmm.
So just say you go on YouTube and you've got Nouman Ali Khan and you've got Mufti Bank and you've got all doing this Ramadan 2018 thing.
Mm-hmm.
How do we stick to that?
Mm-hmm.
Like, is there something that we just follow? Like, because that's where I get confused, because you're listening to all these different sources. Like that's very straightforward and simple.
That's
I just want straightforward and simple.
That's our times. We're just bombarded, and there's so much good in that. All these people are saying so many good things, but it's just it's like food you can't digest. You know, you just like.
So I could just follow what you said, and just follow that.
No, I mean, it's all about really looking at yourself and setting yourself goals, realistic goals, looking at your time, how you're going to spend it, and keeping it simple. I mean, it's about more advice from people.
Because I think there's no contradiction between what Amin said and
Would everybody say the same thing?
and what Imam Ali Khan said and what Mufti makes. So there's no contradiction. It's just they might be just expanding on different things, because Amin could sit and talk for 10 hours about Ramadan if we asked him. So there's so much we could know about
See, I've not looked yet, but they're all coming up now, aren't they, on YouTube 2018, listen, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, this looks
So
quite
you
good.
won't, what I'm saying is, with trusted scholars, you won't find any contradiction between what they're saying. It's just that Amin has got a limited amount of time he's trying to...
So it's the same idea.
Everyone's gonna, it's an ocean. So everyone's taking from. And the Qur'an is an ocean, so everyone's taking from different things. But it can be bewildering just having.
And it's okay if they're slightly different, but just try to bring yourself back to.
So I mean, it's yeah.
As long as they're teaching.
Everyone's it's all the same essentially. It's about where you really. It's about you. Where do you relate to Allah? Because you can watch YouTube all night and. But what have you actually taken from Allah? What have you implemented?
The way that you've said that,
Mm-hmm.
it just seems so straightforward and simple. It's almost like, okay, well, I'll just take that
Mm-hmm.
and I'll just do that, and that's fine for me. And is that okay?
Yeah, of course. And you'll get, obviously, people are speaking at different levels. So this is new to Islam, so we're speaking at a basic level, which we can, and we're all at a basic level, to be honest.
See, I don't know.
And we also we're in it's a very difficult time we're in. The days are very long. We're living in the West. We have to just give people the,
See, I think all our journeys are quite personal. So whether you're new to or born to, or
so exactly.
See, I was thinking of atheism 2 weeks ago, and here I am sitting here.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see what I mean? So, but something's pulling me towards praying today, so I did the second prayer. So I've been doing this for 25 years, and I don't know which. So that's my journey.
It's your journey, exactly. Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? So whether you're new or whether I usually isolate myself, which for me is the best way, is to just
definitely
switch off from the world and just go in. But I never knew that was one of the. It's for your spiritual journey. You're not actually on a spiritual journey doing that. And I think for me, otherwise you just get caught up with everything and you just get lost with it. Do you know what I mean? And spiritually, you just become very confused.
But you don't have to isolate yourself from good companions.
I've isolated myself for 20 years from Muslims because.
Yeah, but I'm talking about good companions. It's good to isolate yourself from the TV and from, nonsense and stuff. But it's good also to have good companions so we can encourage each other.
See, I don't have any Muslim friends. I don't have any. I don't know anybody Muslim.
So start going to.
Do you see what I mean? So, but yet I'm following this path, and I just don't understand why I'm following it sometimes. And that to me just sounded so right in my heart, though. So I just follow what's in my heart.
Exactly, that's good.
Are you supposed to just follow what's in the heart?
Yeah, and then
I think in some ways, because it's like what you can do as well. It's like a lot of people. It's like if someone comes into Islam and they don't know anything about it, they can overwhelm themselves by trying to do everything at once. And it's the same thing as Ramadan. It's like if you try to make up a big massive list and do everything, you're going to burn yourself out. I
think everybody that comes into it, though, do they not? Like 12 years ago is when I decided. I just asked somebody I want to pray, and I don't even know why I did. But I went into it 24/7. Everybody that knew that I was coming into the home would right, put Peace TV on for Kubra because she's going to ignore us. She's just going to sit and do that because. I didn't want to sit and talk to people about their day. I found it so boring. I hate saying that, but I just didn't want to. I just wanted to focus. I did it for 7 years, and I don't know why I did. And then I started to come away from it because I was listening to too much stuff on YouTube and all that, and I just got lost with it. And then I was like, well, am I Buddhism? Am I atheist? What about all these other religions? What about unity? What about... So I'll kind of go through this 2 weeks, but I think when you sometimes learn about everything else, it's a good thing. I think it sometimes snatches you away from where you're supposed to be going. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like me saying it because it's like you learn about yourself. So it's like Ramadan. That if you can cut out a lot of distractions, then you've got the self-examination yourself. So you compare yourself to what's happened in the last year, the last while, however far back you go, and then. You can see where you want to maybe go in the future, but not going like massive big steps. So it's like if you want to improve, you can say that maybe I'd like to sort of improve in 1 or 2 areas. But like for a month, it's like you've got no distractions. If you cut out a lot of the things that you normally sort of listen to and watch and hear, you get that time to reflect into yourself.
See, but I think it's the best part of the year because you don't have to bother with anybody.
Yeah.
Sorry to say that, but because I think life's so nice when sometimes we don't. But then obviously, people say to me that you isolate yourself. I'm a very sociable person, as you can see. I'm talking and I just get so fed up with my surroundings because this doesn't make sense to me. So you just want to shut off and do your own little thing and be quiet in that and just. But then I don't know whether that's a problem and that's right.
I mean, it's a beautiful thing that it's actually part of our religion. It comes around to change your routine, because routine is what you just get stuck in routine, stuck in a rut. But this is actually telling us no, just recorrect it. Even the way the times you sleep, the time you eat, everything has to be changed. And if the fact that Prophet made it itikaf and he changed his routine again and spent time in the mosque. And so it's like a message saying that you have to shake things up at least once a year, and you're actually forced to do that and cut things up.
Change the routine? What do you mean?
Even just the fact that you're sleeping at different times, eating at different times, it's making you change your times, and that in itself has a spiritual effect. And it's all the other things we mentioned as well. That's also making a change and reflection and so on and so on. But if you just stick in one, if you go on one kind of.
Is that why do you think the prayers are all different?
Yeah, I mean, also even in this country as well, the fact that there's so much alternation between summer and winter, and although it's challenging, it's also very positive because it doesn't let you get in a rut. It can be or negative. It can be negative as well because you're struggling to find a rhythm, but at the same time you're just forcing to keep moving and keep changing and evolving, and I think that's really positive.
So routine might not be so positive then.
Routine is essential, but you have to. You don't become a slave of the routine. You change your routine. You realize that you have, and that Ramadan is actually giving you. You have got the freedom. You have got the ability to break that. If someone said to a non-Muslim, how can you not eat for 17 hours, whatever it is, that's some. But when you do it, it gives you that. It empowers you, and it gives you that. It shows you how strong you really can be. And everyone's experienced that, I'm sure.
It's a bit like maybe travelling. So it's like. You normally work or you're at university, whatever, and then you go on holiday. As soon as you cross the threshold of your door and you've broken your routine, you're on holiday, you're on the train, the bus, whatever, walking down the street, your mind's focused on different things and you're thinking in different ways. And just by breaking your routine, by going somewhere as a holiday, you're seeing through different eyes in some ways, and your understanding sort of changes. And it's the same thing in a normal sort of life pattern. If you break that pattern away from your normal routine, you start thinking about things that maybe you didn't think about before.
What about if you had a routine that implemented positive stuff though?
Sorry?
What about if you had a routine that implemented positive? You would still switch that around?
We have to, yes. You just have to make it even more positive.
In Ramadan we have to, don't we? Because as Amin said, we're probably, I haven't checked the times of the evening, but if
2 o'clock?
about 2 o'clock in the morning, do you
Is it 2 in the morning?
Yeah,
because you should eat before you start fasting, so you have to eat before Fajr.
What would you suggest to eat? Stodgy food, rice, pasta, water. What would you suggest?
Some protein.
Right,
Tell me what though?
Genesis.
Scrambled eggs on toast.
Tennis.
Oh gosh, I need more
Soup.
than
So I usually have porridge.
that. Don't forget
Porridge and almonds and put 3 dates in it, and then I have a couple of boiled eggs.
But the problem with me is I work quite hard labour, like skate gardening. Alright, I'm not quite as good now because I've got an injury, but I'm still working outside using one arm. So,
But do you like your food? Are you good eater?
sporadic.
I
One
think
meal a day.
So you need a proper solid meal with meat or chicken or whatever, something that's going to keep you
So
going.
if you do it and then just
Veg
put it in
in.
the microwave.